Okay, guys. Good morning, everyone, and good evening to those who are in the U.S. So today is it's a Monday in the U.S. and Tuesday for us here in Manila, and every Monday we have our doctor's training call. But today, our webinar will focus on two parts. First part, we'll have Dr. Arle Pero discuss today's topic, and this is in observance of the National DNA Day. Okay, today is the National DNA Day. Okay, now his topic would focus on good health starts and ends at the DNA level, and then why focus on DNA health and function, stability, and repair. Okay, so that would be the first part, and we'll keep it short for today with regards to today's topic. And the second part, we will pay a tribute to Dr. Jose Oclarit, who was involved in an automobile accident last Saturday, okay? And just passed away last Saturday, okay? So that will be our second part. Now, okay, so maybe we could greet Dr. Ali. Good morning, Dr. Ali.
Yes, good evening, America. Good morning, Asia. It's very unfortunate to receive the news of our dear professor, Dr. Jose Oclarit. And so we accept it as it is and appreciate the legacy that he has left for us. It is now our duty to continue that legacy, to bring the gospel, if I may say, of DNA health to the world. And so we will be having a brief review on the value of DNA health. And so I will now let Francis to get the slides ready that I have prepared for today's session. Francis?
Dr. Sir Leon and Dr. Mario at this very moment, they're having a Zoom meeting with the Autism Society of the Philippines here. So they're, I'm sure they will catch up. Okay, so okay, let me pull up Dr. Arle's slide.
I suggest to keep a close attention to the slides I have prepared today or tonight. I feel this is one of the best presentations we should ever have. This is just short. It just includes some slides, but it's very important because it already summarizes everything that we had been discussing for many years. But before we continue, we should mention our disclaimer that this presentation is for private training. There is no attempt to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any medical condition. And if one has any health challenges, to always consult a health professional or physician, and health statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. And there is no intention to do copyright infringement because everything is done for educational purposes alone. So next slide, please, Francis. So the main topic is DNA. So it's just 3 letters, DNA. And you can now see my brief, let's say, background. I'm a retired physician on family medicine. I now focus on public health. And I'm a member of the Institute of Functional Medicine, together with Dr. Mario and Dr. Susan Marlin. And I'm a member of the Kapisanan ng mga Broadcasters ng Pilipinas. This is an association nationwide here in the Philippines of people who go on radio and TV, and I'm fortunate to be one of the members. Next slide, please, Francis. Okay, so what is the meaning of DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. So take a screenshot of this. At least if the doctor asks you what is DNA, you know what to say. So DNA is an abbreviation of deoxyribonucleic acid. And the DNA is a molecule. So what it is? A molecule that carries genetic information, genetic is the information passed on from one generation to another. It's present in all living organisms. And inside the DNA, it's made up of 4 nitrogen bases, which we call nucleotides, that will form the double helix strand of the DNA. And they are adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. So take note of that. These are just 4 elements. But this is very important because this is inside the DNA. And then since we now celebrate DNA month in America, we have now briefly how the DNA was discovered. The discovery of DNA is credited to several scientists. It's not only one person, but there was a simultaneous activity from different places, and they collaborated their findings. These are James Watson, Francis Crick, Rosalind Franklin, and Maurice Wilkins. In 1953, most of us were not born yet at that time, Watson and Crick published a paper describing the structure, take note, the structure of the DNA. And the technology was X-ray crystallography. And the images were taken from the research done by Franklin and Wilkins. Now take note, later on this was given Nobel Prize recognition. Why? Because by just simply being able to discover the structure, we immediately know it has far-reaching consequences. And if I may repeat to summarize this slide, DNA is deoxyribose nucleic acid. Inside the DNA are the nucleotides. If I may advance our presentation, inside the Imorigen, let's say, bottle are the nucleotides. So quickly, you can now see the connection, the significance. Next slide, please, Francis. Okay, so the journey of DNA discovery. So take note, mankind took note that there is such thing as a genetic material related to the transmission of hereditary traits as early as 1928. And then the DNA genetic factor was discovered in 1944. But in 1952, the structure, the double helix, which we just mentioned, was already, let's say, identified. And then it led to the importance of the central dogma of life. This is in 1958. Wow. And then research was done on the gene, or we call it the Human Genome Project. And this was completed in 2001. In fact, when this was announced in CNN, this completion of the Genome Project, I happened to see it in the CNN at that time. And it was just announced in passing, but privately, personally, I said to myself, wow, for the first time, man probably can act like God because he is now able to map out the genomic profile of the human being. Wow. And then from then on, there are a lot of, let's say, researches to be done, which is so exciting. And it makes us doubly excited because the role of dietary supplementation to support the DNA, which we'll be discussing today, will gain prominence as time goes on. So, Central Dogma of Biology, 1958. Most of us were not born yet at that time, right? The structure of the DNA, 1952. Wow, this is a modern, let's say, development in the field of science, especially in physiology and the field of biochemistry and the field of medicine. Next slide, please, Francis. Now, this is also more studies that were done, but take note, in 1969, they took note that when the repair of a DNA is not done well, so the DNA, which we just emphasized, can be destroyed, can be damaged. If it is not repaired, take note, in 1969, they took note that it can lead to cancer. But if you will ask me, it's not only cancer, it's everything. It will weaken almost everything. Why? Because it is the molecular foundation of our body, which we'll be reviewing in a little while. And so uh, uh, DNA, if you look at year 2005, DNA damage response roles in the earlier of later tumors. So more and more, let's say, research now being done in this area. And it's so exciting that in the field of food supplementation, we seem to be far ahead. In fact, Europe was far ahead. In Czech Republic, where Imorigen was formulated in 1983. That's about 40 years ago. And it is only now, my dear friends, we are bringing the good message in the world that we have a dietary supplement that can possibly have a vital role for our health at the level of the DNA. Next slide, please, Francis. Next slide, please, Francis. So my PowerPoint is in the, let's say, hands of Francis. Francis, next slide, please. Okay. So you can see, my dear friends, we are now reviewing the development, the discovery, the vital role of the DNA in our body. Next slide, please, Francis. Okay, so when our DNA is stable, because we just mentioned it can possibly be damaged or destroyed, right? But let's focus on the good side. The DNA is stable. What will I get out of it? Immunologist Peter Sima, a prominent immunologist in Europe, especially the Czech Republic. He is a professor, College of Medicine in Prague. Has mentioned 20 benefits. I have a copy of that. But I will just focus on 10, just for the sake of answering the question, why should I study the DNA? What will I get from the DNA anyway? So I listed down 10. And then you will see the image on the right side where the DNA contains the code of our life. Our very existence is in the DNA. And we will review that as we go along. So that alone will already get us interested because it's almost everything. But number one, accurate replication of cells. That means the creation of new cells, the reproduction of new cells, because our cells die. It has to be replaced, but it should be replaced accurately. Because if it's not done accurately, then it will lead to problems like in tumor formation. Number two, it's needed for our immune system function. That's why in America, Imorigen is labeled as immune system booster. Wow, this is very important. The immune system is one of the 11 systems of the body. This is the armed forces, the soldiers of the body to fight and protect the body from any threat. Would you like to have that benefit? The DNA does that. The next is efficient metabolism. Metabolism means the energy of the body, how the machinery of the body works perfectly. Next is healthy aging. Wow, that's a wonderful benefit, right? Because it will create new cells. When there are new cells, then it replaces the aging cells, so that can possibly delay aging. Number 5, reduce the risk of chronic diseases. You know, chronic diseases are very important because in the field of health, when one would have an acute medical problem, this is where conventional medicine comes in, because medicine is so, let's say, enhanced in terms of providing therapeutics or drugs or surgery. That is for acute medical conditions. For example, like my colleague, Dr. Mario Ramirez, who is an orthopedic surgeon, if one would have a fracture, well, you need immediate repair of the fracture, and that would involve surgery. That's acute. But the bigger problem is chronic diseases, especially when longevity is now, let's say, enhanced. There is the possibility that there will now be, let's say, many conditions leading to the degenerative or the degeneration of the human body. Number 6, stronger bones and muscles. This is very important because if you live long, the bones tends to be weakened, the muscles tend to weaken. That's why you will notice the elderly would now be on, let's say, wheelchair because he cannot walk as effectively as before. And then improve cognitive function. Cognitive means memory, the ability to think. This is so important because when one gets old in life, senile dementia may creep in. Wow, we should at least prevent that as much as possible. Better mood and mental health. That makes you feel good. It will help release hormones that will let you feel good. And then healthy skin and hair. That's why hair, because you will notice that people who regularly take dietary supplements that support the DNA, they tend to look younger, the skin becomes better, and then overall increase longevity. So these are the benefits that we will get if our DNA is stable. As we go on with our presentation today, our goal is how to support the DNA so that it will always be stable. Next slide, please, Francis. Francis, next slide. Okay, so there are two keywords or two molecules that will always come to our attention. The first one is DNA, which we started discussing. And the second one is RNA. Do you know the difference between DNA and RNA? So on the right side is the DNA, right? It's double-stranded. On the left side of the diagram is the RNA, right? So can you now see the difference? One is double-stranded, one is single-stranded. Number two, if you will notice, both have nitrogen bases, which we call nucleotides. So what's the difference? The difference is on the thymine. The DNA is thymine, in the RNA is uracil, okay? So we will learn more in detail on the next slide. Francis, next slide, please. Okay, so this is now the correct orientation. On the left side, you now see the DNA, right? It's double-stranded. And then you now see the nucleotides, which are adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. The yellow or orange portion is the phosphate. Actually, when you say nucleotide, it involves three parts: the phosphate group, the sugar group, and the nitrogen base. That's nucleotide. But commonly, publicly, when we refer to the nitrogen bases, we call them nucleotides. But in truth, the nitrogen bases are just one part of the nucleotide. So anyway, it's still connected. So the DNA has the adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. Our Immunogen formula has adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine in its ingredients as listed in the US label. Now, when you look at the right side, you look at the RNA, it's single-stranded, right? But you take note, it has the same cytosine, same guanine, same it has the same cytosine, guanine, and adenine. But when it comes to thymine, it is uracil. So the question is, does our Immunogen contain the five? Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil? The answer is yes. It's listed in the US label. In other countries like in Europe and the Philippines, it's just listed as nucleotides, but there are five of them. So this diagram shows the five because it will include the nitrogen base coming from RNA. Okay, you got it, my dear friends? Are you learning? Okay, next slide, please, Francis. Okay, so why our life starts and ends at the DNA level? If you look at the diagram on the right side, at the bottom, you see the human body. And the human body has many systems and then organs, and then tissue and cell, right? And what is illustrated on the right side is the cardiovascular system because the organ is the heart. But it is true to any systems in the body. When you look at the left side, I have outlined how to learn and see how our body is organized. First, it is organized at the gross level. Gross level means as seen by the naked eye. So if you have seen, let's say, the human body inside, when it's opened up, let's say in surgery, that's gross anatomy. And then you take a portion of the tissue of the organ and look at the microscope, and now you will see the cell. And then with electron microscopy, where magnification is 10,000 times, you will be able to see the chromosome, which we counted to be 46 in each nucleus of every cell. Wow, and there are 200 million cells in the body. But what is most important, and this is where we are trying to share the message to the world, is that the foundation of the body at the molecular level is the DNA. The DNA is inside the nucleus of every cell. When you look at the nucleus, you will see the chromosome. Inside the chromosome are the genes. Inside the genes are the DNA. And then we just emphasize inside the DNA are the nucleotides. And our immunogen has nucleotide. You get it? That's why we would say our life and health would start at the DNA level. Next slide, please, Francis. Okay, so a while ago, we talked about the benefits of DNA stability. Now, here is the problem. What will happen to our body or to our life when there is lack of nucleotides? And you now know that nucleotides is the, let's say, building block of the DNA. So if you will see at the right side, the diagram, you will see the cell, right? And then you will see the nucleus of the cell. Inside the nucleus of the cell is the chromosome, right? The X-like structure. And then in one strand of that X-like structure, we now have, let's say, the DNA strand. And then you can now see the series of DNA, the gene, and then we focus on one DNA, you can see the nucleotides inside the DNA. You got it? And these nucleotides are cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, and uracil, right, for the RNA. But for the DNA, it's thymine, right? The nucleotides are inside the DNA. Now, the question is, what if there is lack of nucleotides? What will happen? You get the question? Okay, the answer is on the left side. When there is a lack of nucleotides, the DNA replication process, replication means the ability of the DNA to copy itself to create new cells. The DNA replication process can be disrupted, right? Leading to errors in the genetic code because the DNA contains a genetic code. If there are errors, that will lead to genetic mutation, which can cause genetic disorders or increase the risk of developing certain diseases. You get it? Can you now see, my dear friends, the connection? Okay, next slide, please, Francis. Okay, to further understand the importance of the DNA and the RNA, we now have discussed before, and I remember Dr. Jose Oclarit has discussed a well presentation on the central dogma of biology. In the future, we'll just have it replayed. So the question is, what is the role of the DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid in the central dogma of biology? First, look at the image on the right side, because this is a complex process. In fact, when Dr. Oclarit lectured this before, it's so complex that it's only Dr. Mario and I who understood it. But it is the simplest that he can present to a medical student. And since we are not medical students, we will not probably understand. But to simplify, it's simply 3 steps. DNA, RNA, protein. Can you see it? But it's 11 actually. DNA, RNA, protein. But the point to consider is to realize that the starting point is the DNA. You got it? The starting point is the DNA. And then the next important molecule is the RNA. And then the protein is the entire body. You get it? That's why we call it the central dogma of biology. Biology means our life. If we will make it more specific, it is the central dogma of molecular biology. And the process of creating the RNA from the DNA is transcription. And the process of creating the protein, the body from the RNA is translation. And then you can now see the diagram and you will see how complex it can be, right? So let's go now to the left side. The three basic steps in the central dogma of molecular biology is to realize that the DNA is the starting point to provide genetic information and then to create the RNA. And the process is transcription. And when the RNA is created, the role of the RNA is to create our body. Everything that the body needs, the structure and function. And it is done through protein synthesis. And the process is translation. So can you see the important role of DNA? It's the starting point. If you got it wrong at the starting point, the rest would be incomplete. You get it? And always bear in mind, remember that inside the DNA are the nucleotides. So you can now immediately see, I'm emphasizing it again and again, the vital importance of providing dietary nucleotides for our DNA. You got it, my dear friends? Okay, next slide, please, Francis. Okay, here is the problem. The problem is that the DNA is damaged. And you can see in this diagram, at the upper portion of the diagram, there are many factors that can lead to the weakening of the DNA. And one of them is lack of nucleotides, right? But there are many factors. Okay, next slide, please, Francis. So after having identified the problem, our focus now is, yes, next slide, yes. Our focus now is on the solution. And I would like to emphasize that the solution is DNA health, DNA repair, DNA stability. And again, it supports the idea why our health message is that life starts and ends at the DNA level. Now, look closely at the diagram on the right side of the slide. So at the upper portion, you see DNA damage. And when the DNA is damaged on the left side, it will lead to replication errors or copying errors, which we just mentioned. And that can lead to mutation, that can lead to genomic instability. And it has been observed in research that one of the effects is cancer. That's why one of the hallmarks or the cause of cancer is DNA damage. You got it, my dear friends? And then if you look at the right side, when there is DNA damage, it will obviously affect the cell. Why? Because the DNA is inside the nucleus of every cell, right? So it can lead to cell death. It can lead to cell toxicity. That's why you need to detox, right? It can lead to disease. And that's, we just mentioned, it can lead to chronic diseases. Therefore, the obvious solution is to repair the DNA. If you look at the upper portion, DNA damage, the solution is DNA repair. Okay, so look at the left side of the diagram. Our ideal goal is to have a healthy DNA and DNA stability. That is our goal. And therefore, when the DNA is damaged, it must be repaired, right? And the three major repair mechanisms provided by the body, that's how good and kind the body is. The three major repair mechanisms provided by the body are base excision repair, mismatch repair, and nucleotide excision repair. That's another topic. Dr. Oclarit at one time gave an excellent lecture on these three fundamental process, how the body repairs the DNA. But what I would like you to take note is that number 3, this is a complex repair mechanism. It's nucleotide excision repair, even though we don't understand how exactly it does its work. But on the very title alone, it's very obvious that we need nucleotides, right? Why? Because it's part of the repair mechanism, nucleotide excision repair. You got it, my dear friends? That's why to make it simple, but it is really that simple, we should assure ourselves that we are supplying the dietary ingredients to support the DNA health, DNA repair, and DNA stability. Next slide, please, Francis. So are you learning as we go along? We are just summarizing the many lectures we have done in the past. We're about to end. So the basic ingredients of Imorigen and how to support DNA health. And by the way, Imorigen is the trade name. It comes from two key words, Imo for immunity and regen for regeneration. And research have shown that the ingredients of Imorigen supports immunity. We just mentioned it a while ago, and regeneration. And specifically the dietary ingredients. Take note, it's dietary. It's not a medicine or a drug or pharmaceutical. It's food, dietary. Number 1, complex dietary nucleotides. Number 2, amino acids. Number 3, peptides and oligopeptides. Number 4, vitamins and minerals. The ingredients are simple. But when the Imorigen formula was done in 1983 in Europe, in the Czech Republic to be exact, it's still the same formula to date, which is already 40 years later. And nobody has copied exactly the same formula. The ingredients are simple, but the process on how to put these ingredients together to get the excuse me, to get the right ingredients and to put them together is a two-tiered process, two-level proprietary process. That's why even though you know the ingredients, how it's created is never revealed. That's why up to this date, nobody has copied Imorigen. So aren't you proud that you have a food supplement that is so, let's say, unique in the sense that it has the ingredients to support the central dogma of life? At the same time, if this is one, let's say, food supplement you would share to realize that you have the only one, right? Or would you like to share something that almost everybody has? So it's unique, exclusive, cannot be copied, consumable, and we are the first one to bring it to the world. This is one of the legacy that we can do in honor of our dear professor, Dr. Jose Oclavi. Next slide, please, Francis. The next slide will now summarize everything. Yes, this one. This will now summarize everything. This is the second to the last slide and we're done. But take note of this. I suggest you take a screenshot because I have now summarized everything in this one slide. What are the dietary ingredients needed to support DNA structure and function? It's important to realize that function will always follow structure. So we would like to ensure that the structure is stable, right? So for the DNA and RNA structure, look at the left side. For the DNA structure, we need the cytosine, guanine, thymine, adenine, right? We just discussed it a while ago. For the RNA structure, we need the cytosine, guanine, and instead of thymine, it's uracil. That's why to support the DNA and RNA, you need 5 nitrogen bases. It's cytosine, guanine, thymine, adenine, uracil, right? And in the US label, it's printed with the corresponding percentages. That's why if you will compare our Imorigen with other food supplements, the simple question is this: does your food supplement contain nucleotides? And most probably none. If they do, probably only 1 or 2. Okay? But our Imorigen has the 5. It's listed, right? So that makes it different. Okay, so please enlarge, let's say, show the right side of the slide, Francis. Highlight. Okay, so on the right side, after having established the structure, we now focus on the function. So what is the function of the DNA? The function of the DNA is to copy itself or replication. This is transcription. It happens inside the nucleus. Because in the central dogma of life, there are 3 elements. We just discussed it a little while, right? DNA leading to RNA leading to protein. The protein is the entire body, right? To maintain itself and to support the body to heal itself and to fight any threats. So the function of the DNA is what? to get the genetic information to be transmitted to the RNA. So the RNA is now created, right? What's the function of the RNA? To create our body, to protein synthesis. And the RNA got the code from the DNA. And to create the body, the RNA needs 20 amino acids. And this step is translation. It happens outside the nucleus, done in the cytoplasm. You got it? And our Immunogen formula coming from bovine tissue extract has 17 amino acids, including the 9 essential amino acids. And if you have the 9 essential amino acids, it will create the 20 amino acids needed by the body. Wow. You got it, my dear friends? Okay, so that's the reason why the Immunogen formula has the ingredients that will support DNA structure, RNA structure, DNA function, and RNA function. Okay, next slide, please, Francis. Always look at this slide because this already summarizes everything. It will answer the question, oh, why will I take your Immunogen anyway? You get it? So everything is in one, let's say, slide. Next slide, please, Francis. You're about to end our lecture. So be a part of our mission to share this good news of DNA health, DNA stability, and repair, and simply master this one-page presentation. Okay? So you will notice on the upper portion of the diagram, it showed the structure of the body from the gross level to the cellular level to the biochemical level. And then take note at the end point, which is the DNA, it contains the nitrogen bases or the nucleotides. And then take note that the Immunogen formula contains the nucleotides, right? And then at the left lower portion is the Nobel Prize recognition. Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2015 was on DNA repair. When the DNA is damaged, it's being repaired. And we just emphasized that one of the major repair mechanisms is nucleotide excision repair. And then at the right lower portion are the 20 benefits reported by immunologist Peter Sima. And this is a third-party, let's say, observation. It's not in any way connected to our company or manufacturer, but this is an independent third-party research. And this is what they found. 20 benefits from, let's say, the Immunogen formula. And I just focused a while ago, 10 benefits that if you have sufficient supply of nucleotides to promote DNA and RNA stability, you are towards better health, right? Okay, next slide, please, Francis. And I think that is the last one. That's why, my dear friends, if you are, let's say, attending our Zoom for the first time, get in touch with the person who invited you. Get in touch with our independent business representatives for more information, because Forever Healthy LLC is our bridge to bring us from where we are to where we want to be. And she has 3 major goals. The first goal is life. The second goal is livelihood. And the third goal is legacy. Life is health. Livelihood is to make it more affordable for us to be able to get all the Forever Healthy products. And then this is the legacy that we can leave behind to our family, to our children, and to our children's 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 children. Okay? So thank you so much. I hope that this brief presentation, which summarized everything that we learned from our professor, Dr. Jose Oclarit, and we would always remember him for being a part of our life. He has left so much as a legacy for us to be a part of, for us to remember, and for us to bring the message of good health to the world. Francis?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Arle. Okay, We have Sir Leon Katz who just joined us. Good morning, Sir Leon Katz.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. That was a great presentation, Doctor. You really, I want to thank you for the hours you put in, the overtime to create, to research, to study, to present the information so everybody online can benefit. And that's what we're trying to do, just educate and inform. How do we do that? Well, what we've learned, and it's not the other way around, what we've learned is the best thing you can do to help your current condition, no matter what it is, whether you're healthy or not healthy, is to support your body structure and function at the DNA level. And that's what we're just giving you the information on. And there's tons and tons and tons of information about how and why this all happens. But just do, well, like Dr. Arle would often say, just look at the basics. The body invented by God, right? But it's your DNA that controls and runs the show. So it always breaks millions of times a day, and it's always trying to repair. So give it the functional nutrition it needs in order to do the repair. You're done. That's it. That's who we are. That's what we do.